5 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There's a purported skill or education job gap, and it's suggested that it poses a hindrance to employment and may relate to a decline in labor force participation rate and the employment to population ratio. When the economy is growing at a healthy pace and demand for labor is strong, are skill differentials as great a factor in getting a job offer as when there is excessive labor? Perhaps that's a subjective question, but I mean it is, but if you have any ideas, I'd appreciate it.
Generally speaking, the lower skilled people have bigger increases in their unemployment rate during recessions than higher skilled people. So their wages of higher skilled people and employment of higher skilled people are preserved much more than lower skilled people during recessions.
So using that suggestion, do you believe that we have a long-term structural problem in terms of what Senator Klobuchar referred to, in terms of matching those skills up and education? And therefore, is it somehow something that is structural in a way that we have to respond to differently than we are? And are many of these people permanently displaced? Do you see some change in that? Does a demand in a growing economy help that? Whatever you think.
Sure. Generally speaking, the BLS doesn't have data about the specific skills required for job vacancies that employers are trying to fill. However, we'd say that from what we can see, there doesn't appear to be a larger than normal mismatch between the skills employers are seeking and those that job seekers have. One of the reasons why we say this is because we haven't seen an increase in wages, and that's what you would expect if you had a big sudden mismatch in what employers were between what employers were demanding and the skills that workers had. You'd see an increase in wages for those workers who had those skills. So we're not seeing that.
But other things could be the reason for that as well. I mean, you're talking about basic supply and demand, but there is wage growth in general has been relatively stagnant, in some areas even in a decline.
That's right. But if you had some employers who were, a group of employers who really wanted to get a certain workers with a certain skill, you'd expect that they would start hiring, they'd start poaching each other's workers, and in response, employers would then raise their wages to be able to retain them.
Perhaps this has been, thank you, perhaps this has been asked, but do you think that there's been some conversation about there is a population in our country that has not really been well prepared for retirement. We know that, and even young people going towards 50-year-olds and 55 and older are not prepared. We've seen a lot of elderly, older people that might otherwise wish to be retired or not, engaging in the labor force, and there's also suggestion that there's a displacement because of that for younger people who might enter that same workforce for those same jobs. Can you talk a little bit about that, if you actually think that's the case, or what that may look like on the ground?
The increase in labor force participation amongst older workers seems to be an important part of that is that the jobs that they're in are increasingly ones that one can do later in life. So they're less likely to be blue-collar jobs where the physical demands become difficult for people at older ages. So this is seen as one of the most, an important factor in the increasing participation.
But wouldn't those same jobs be the ones that people entering the workforce would also be likely to take?
Usually, the sort of crowding out that people think about is not, internationally hasn't been seen as that much of a factor in whether or not you have overall wage employment growth. Usually when you have a growing economy, then you can accommodate all the workers.
So growth
who come
helps
in.
everyone.
Growth helps everyone. That's
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.